All right. Welcome back, friends. Today we're getting right into a continuation of the material that we left with last time. And you may remember we were talking about something that's called the Serenity Prayer. And we weren't using it as a prayer. That might not be your bag, and I'm not here to talk to you about God and higher powers, even though those who follow the 12-step tradition certainly are aware of this prayer as they speak to their higher power, but rather this as a collection of words that you can think of in your own heart, because all that it's really doing is requesting discernment in our lives to be able to tell the things that we can change, the things we can't change, and have some kind of agency over which is which and what degree we can influence them. And when we get into this, I think it's a bit important that we consider change. You know, I talked in the whole first season about new beginnings, and it felt pretty benign, even though these were very big changes we were talking about. The epiphanies of life, for example, going off and making great changes in your life. But I didn't always talk about change as a verb. And when we do that, instead it feels to me a bit different of a word. It's the same letters, but when you say that you want to change something about yourself, for me, that suggests a lacking or some kind of problem that either needs to be righted in the direction that you intended or that needs to be rolled back to some former glory. And when you say change as a verb about someone you hold dear, I feel like that just makes us think that you believe that you have some control over them or dominion. And that was never given to you, right? So you shouldn't be thinking in that way to begin with. So instead, what we want to think about is influence. And when we consider influence, we might try to begin a little pathway about thinking about what things can be changed and what things can't. It's right there in that prayer. The wisdom to know the difference between the things we can't change and the things that we can. So let's take a moment. I think about change as being a realization that there is a distance between different elements of our world. And I love the fact that the word distant means so many different things. And in each particular sphere over which you can talk about distance, you have a very different antonym. Think about this for a minute. The most readily available thought of the word distant is it's proximal. It's that's happening way over there. I don't have much agency to influence that. But at the same time, the opposite of distance here would be nearby or close. So the closest thing to me, of course, is right here in my heart. And actually, that's sometimes very hard to influence or change. Then we also have the phrase of being distant in the future or the past. And this temporal distance might have an opposite of imminent or right upon us. And of course, we know that the things that are in the past, they are foregone as gone, and we can't change those by any stretch. But the things that are in the future are easier to change or influence if they are in the immediate future. But if they're far in the future, even if you change the path that looks like it's going to get you there, there's a lot of time between now and then, and it might change even dramatically. So that's harder to change as well. And we can look at the word change or the word distance in many other ways, too. If we think about emotional distance, the opposite of that might be considered to be intimate. People that are not emotionally distant are those folks that want to reveal things about themselves and have those deep conversations in the hopes that it will be reciprocated by those around them, and they will have these intimate moments with the people they hold dear. And you can go down many other paths of distance, be it cultural, technological, generational, economic, etc. In all cases, something is right upon you, right at your heart, right on, right at the forefront of your life, or it's distant. And what we end up realizing, as we have in many episodes here, is that you have much less ability to influence something that is at that great distance. So, what does that mean? It means that being open to yourself in the present, being focused on today, are the best chances that you have at making a difference. Well, let's look a little bit as well at that phrase about the things that we cannot change versus the things that we can change. And this is where I feel that an update needs to be made to this proverb of sorts. Because in the century that has followed the creation or the writing of it, the amount of things that are truly impossible has gotten extremely small. Extremely small. We can do far more than we ever did before. And so that list is getting smaller and smaller as scientific discoveries and innovations are made. If you just think about it, in the 1920s and 30s, I'm sure that flying to the moon seemed a very large pipe dream, but now humanity has done that. And as we think about Neil Armstrong's words when he first stepped onto the moon and adapt them a bit, my thoughts go to the fact that even though humanity has made a giant leap at a time like that, individuals of us humans, many of us, are finding it very hard to make that one small step. And the result is that we're creating a chasm greater every single day between those who can and those who can't. So while we are fully aware of what is available to humanity, it's not always available to individuals among humanity. And I know that I'm speaking to you today from a point of privilege here with an internet connection and a computer, and you there, wherever you are, have the resources and the ability to play this and listen to it and hopefully kind of feel with me and so on. But for many people around the world, this idea of throwing my image and voice to you at a great proximal distance in a heartbeat is as unlikely as it ever was. So you've got to think about that. And the reason that I'm going here with this line of thought is because in the fact that there are so many things that we can do now, the question becomes less of this is what can't be done, this is what can, and I want to know the difference. The update that I would make would be knowing what is impossible today, what's impossible today but might be possible tomorrow or the next day, the things that I can change now, the things that I may be able to change soon, and for me, most important, the things that I can change, but my fellow human beings may not be able to as readily. Do I want to contribute to that chasm? And when we think about making changes to ourself, there's a lot of categories. We've talked in earlier episodes, and we'll continue to do so, about the different types of self. You've certainly got your physical self, but we could break that down further to the inner, like actual guts and stuff inside your skin. And then there's the outward facing. It's amazing the degrees to which those updates can be made now in our world. If you just think about, if today's you was living at the time that Reinhold Niebuhr said these words, would you already be dead for some reason that you have survived now? Think about all the disease and the operations that you've had and the near misses in vehicles that now stop the brakes for you at times. You probably wouldn't have made it through as far as you have many years ago. And that in itself is something to think about, because it's really that shockingly different. And so many of the small things that we, in a way, take for granted as being changeable weren't changeable years ago or hadn't been discovered. Even the concept of wearing high heels to look a little taller, or discovering that you can wear stripes vertically to appear taller, that you can wear glasses to change the ability to see. It's absolutely shocking when you really do think about it. But at the same time, there may be people who do not have the resources to make those changes. And so the concept, again, becomes not what can and can't be changed. It's what can be changed, what should be changed, what might be changed, what we want to change, and what we could change, but we're going to just own. And that is where I want to let us ponder and think for a minute today. A very public figure was caught on camera as a father brought a young boy to him and detailed that this boy was suffering from a similar disability to this older man, who then took many minutes to kneel down beside this kid and remind him that he is not that disability, that anything he wants to do, he can do, and so on. It continued. And I assure you that that interaction that took a few minutes will be a valuable node of distinction on this child's tree of possibility all throughout his life. And at some point, he will be in a position to decide whether to stifle or own this challenge of his. And it was all because someone took the time to encourage him. What if this very public figure had instead spent his public career trying to hide that part of him? Or, at worst, mocking people who suffered likewise. Something to think about there. And for that older man, that interaction that took just a few minutes, may be one of those moments that he's not going to think about again. I sure will, because I saw the video. But as we go through our life, as we own the things that we struggle with, we are allowing other people to be aware that they are not alone. They're not alone. And all of these things, when you think back to the decision point navigation trees that you made earlier in the season, every one of them was just riddled with those major, minor moments where something you never expected to be so significant was. Whether you're the boy in that story or you're the public figure in that story, we all are touched by hearing it, by seeing it with our own eyes. And that's what I want to leave you with today. Think about it on your own and see what that does for you, for your story. Do you want to make significant changes? Do you want to regret those things that cannot be changed that are currently a part of you? Or do you want to own that? And do you want to do so in front of full view of everyone around you, which then may become a minor major for them and a major minor for you? Stick with it. In the meantime, friends, you can catch me at rickseaholm.com, on social media at rickseaholm. Check out my other podcast. Do whatever you can to help yourself become the you that you've always dreamed of. Take care of yourselves, friends. After all, you have no other life.